Okay, so you're deep in the world of mathematics, right? Well, imagine a test where humans are actually beating the most advanced AI, when it comes to logical reasoning anyway. That's what we're diving into today, SimpleBench.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting benchmark. It challenges our assumptions about what it even means for AI to be intelligent. We hear all the time about AI mastering complex games, writing code, but SimpleBench, this is focused on a different kind of intelligence. It's more like the common sense reasoning we use to just navigate the world every day.
And get this, humans with just high school level knowledge are outperforming cutting-edge AI models like GPT-4 and Claude.
Really?
Yeah, it's true. We're talking like an 83.7% success rate for humans
Wow.
versus a measly 41.7% for the best AI.
Huh. The results are definitely eye-opening. Simple Bench, it isn't about like crunching numbers or solving these complex equations. It's about applying logic to real-world scenarios, often involving spatial reasoning, social intelligence, or even just understanding the nuances of language.
So it's less about formal mathematical proofs and more about the kind of intuitive reasoning we use when we, say, figure out how to pack a suitcase efficiently or, I don't know, navigate a crowded room.
Exactly. Simple Bench tests the ability to make inferences, draw conclusions, and understand the implications of different actions. Really, all the things that humans do without even thinking, but AI still struggles with.
Okay, can you walk us through an example, like a question that really tripped up the AI? I'm dying to know what kind of common sense problems these super intelligent machines are finding so difficult.
Okay, well, one example from the paper involves a juggler. She's juggling a blue ball and a purple ball. The juggler, she tosses the blue ball a meter high, and then the purple ball, she tosses that 2 meters high. Okay, now to make things even more interesting, she's also climbing up a ladder while she's balancing a yellow balloon on her head. The question is, where is the purple ball in relation to the blue ball?
Okay, my brain immediately pictures both balls back on the ground so they'd be at the same height. I'm guessing the AI got hung up on those initial heights.
You got it. A lot of the AI models, they totally fell for that trap. They were focusing on the different throw heights and completely missing that simple fact that gravity brings both balls back down to the ground.
Yeah, it's like they skipped over the most basic physics principle. Objects fall at the same rate regardless of their mass.
Precisely. And this highlights a key finding of the simple bench research. So current AI models, they might excel at processing tons of data and recognizing patterns, but they struggle with understanding the underlying context and applying basic physical laws to a scenario.
As mathematicians, we're used to working with abstract concepts and building logical arguments. But even in pure math, we always have an underlying framework, so set of axioms to guide our reasoning. It seems like AI is missing that kind of foundational understanding of how the world works.
That's a great point. Simple Bench really suggests that AI is still lacking what the researchers are calling holistic reasoning, the ability to understand which calculations or even just which pieces of information are truly relevant in a situation. Humans do this intuitively, but AI tends to just process everything it's given without really filtering for relevance.
So it's like the AI is trying to solve this complex equation without understanding the underlying problem. It might be able to manipulate symbols, apply rules, but it's missing the big picture understanding.
Exactly. And this becomes even clearer with another example from the paper, what they call the sandwich problem.
Oh, I am intrigued. Let's hear about this sandwich problem. I'm already starting to suspect it's not going to involve any elegant mathematical proofs.
Okay, so picture this. Agatha makes a stack of 5 ham sandwiches, and then she decides to tape the top sandwich to the bottom of her walking stick, and then she walks to another room. So the question is, how many whole sandwiches are in each room now?
Okay, so I'm visualizing this. Immediately, I'm thinking, like, that tape sandwich is probably going to fall apart as she's walking, so it's not really a whole sandwich anymore.
And that's exactly where many of the AI models, specifically GPT-4, stumbled. It just treated it like a simple transfer problem, assuming that the sandwich would stay perfectly intact.
Wait, so even the most advanced AI couldn't grasp the basic physics of a sandwich taped to a walking stick? That's hilarious. I can't help but think about all those complex mathematical models we build, assuming these perfect conditions that never actually exist in the real world.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. The sandwich problem perfectly illustrates how AI can get tripped up by even the simplest real-world scenarios.
But did any of the AI models get this right? Or were they all outsmarted by a sandwich and a walking stick?
Actually, there's a twist. Another model, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, it managed to get it right. It seemed to grasp the common sense notion that A tape sandwich on a moving stick, like, it's not going to hold up.
So there's hope for AI yet. Maybe you can learn a thing or two about the messy realities of the physical world.
It's definitely a step in the right direction. It highlights the fact that not all AI models are created equal. They have different strengths and weaknesses, and some might be better suited to certain types of reasoning than others.
This is making me think about all the different branches of mathematics. You have areas like abstract algebra that deal with pure concepts, structures, and then you have areas like applied mathematics that focus on modeling real-world phenomena. It seems like AI is still stuck in the realm of abstract manipulation, struggling to bridge the gap to the messy complexities of the real world.
That's a brilliant insight, and it perfectly captures the essence of what SimpleBench is revealing about the current state of AI.
I'm curious about the researchers themselves. Did they try to give the AI any hints, any guidance?
Yeah.
It's like watching someone struggle with a proof. You kind of want to nudge them in the right direction without, giving away the whole solution.
They did. They experimented with what's called prompt engineering. So they gave the AI these specific instructions that were designed to make them more cautious and consider real world
Oh,
factors.
interesting. So did these special prompts work? Did they help the AI unlock a deeper level of understanding?
There was some improvement, but it was still far, far below human level performance.
It seems like simply feeding the AI more information or warnings isn't enough.
Yeah.
There's a deeper level of understanding there, like a kind of intuitive grasp of the world that's still missing.
That's a key takeaway from this research. It suggests that we can't simply brute force our way to true AI. We need to develop new approaches that allow AI to learn and reason more like humans do.
It's like teaching someone to prove a theorem. You can't just give them a list of axioms and rules. You have to help them develop the intuition and the insight to see the connections and build a logical argument.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting, right? Like, how do we teach AI to develop that kind of intuition? How do we help it bridge that gap between uh, abstract computation and real world understanding?
That's a question that takes us to the very heart of what it means for a machine to be truly intelligent.
And it's a question we'll keep exploring as we delve deeper into the implications of SimpleBench. We'll look at how it compares to other benchmarks and what it tells us about the future of AI. But first, let's take a closer look at the human side of this whole equation. After all, it's our own intelligence that we're ultimately trying to replicate, right? So we've established that humans they're outperforming AI on this SimpleBench test. It's designed to assess this common sense reasoning. But that kind of begs the question, what does this even tell us about human intelligence?
I think what's fascinating to me is the fact that the humans who took this test, they only needed high school level knowledge.
Right.
So it suggests that even without specialized expertise, humans have this incredible capacity for flexible, adaptable thinking.
Exactly. It seems like we humans just have this innate ability to take a piece of information and apply it to a totally different context, to extrapolate, to make inferences, really in a way that AI is still struggling with.
Thinking back to my own math education, I remember those aha moments, when a concept suddenly clicked. When I saw the connection between seemingly disparate ideas, it's almost like our brains are wired for that kind of creative leap, for finding patterns and making sense of the world around us.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it. And it really highlights the difference between, simply memorizing formulas
Yeah.
or following algorithms and actually understanding those underlying principles. It's the difference between rote learning and genuine insight.
Which makes me think about the role of intuition in mathematics. We often talk about the rigor and logic of proofs, but there's also this intuitive element, this sense of what feels right or wrong that guides our exploration.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the greatest mathematical breakthroughs, they've come from those intuitive leaps, those moments of inspiration, where someone saw a connection that nobody else had noticed before.
And those moments are so hard to explain. It's like, asking someone to write down the steps they took to have a creative thought. It's not a linear process. It's more like a spark, a flash of insight. That can't be easily replicated.
And that kind of brings us back to the challenge of AI, right? Like, how do we create a machine that can not only process information, but also generate those sparks of insight, those intuitive leaps that drive human progress?
It's almost as if we need to teach AI how to be wrong,
Hmm.
how to make mistakes, and learn from them. After all, it's through, those missteps and course corrections that we humans, we refine our understanding of the world.
That's a fascinating idea. Imagine an AI that's not afraid to experiment, to venture outside the bounds of its programming, explore these new possibilities, even if it means, making mistakes.
It would be like giving AI the freedom to play, to tinker, to just explore ideas without that fear of failure that often holds us humans back. Who knows what kinds of breakthroughs might emerge from that kind of open-ended exploration.
It's a tantalizing thought, and it suggests that the future of AI might not be about building, these ever more powerful algorithms, but about creating systems that can learn and adapt in a more organic, more human-like way.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the implications of SimpleBench for different fields. We've been focusing on mathematics, but this research, it has implications for any field that relies on human judgment and decision-making.
Absolutely. Think about fields like medicine or law
Yeah,
or
right.
finance. These are all areas where, professionals, they need to weigh these complex factors, assess risks, and make decisions based on incomplete information.
And those are precisely the kinds of situations where AI often falls short. You can analyze data, identify patterns, but it struggles with that nuanced, context-dependent reasoning that humans excel at.
Exactly. Imagine like a medical AI that can diagnose diseases with incredible accuracy, but lacks that common sense to understand like when a patient's symptoms might be caused by something totally unrelated to their medical history.
Or a legal AI that can parse through mountains of case law, but can't grasp the subtleties of human behavior or the emotional nuances of a courtroom argument.
These examples really highlight the dangers of relying too heavily on AI, without acknowledging its limitations. It's not about replacing human expertise. It's about augmenting it, using AI as a tool to enhance our decision-making abilities, not to supplant them entirely.
It's like using a calculator,
Yeah.
to perform complex calculations, but still relying on our own mathematical understanding to interpret the results and ensure they actually make sense in the context of the problem we're trying to solve.
That's a perfect analogy. AI, it can be an incredibly powerful tool, but it's only as good as the humans who wield it. We need to develop a really deep understanding of its strengths and weaknesses, its capabilities, its limitations, in order to use it responsibly and effectively.
So where does SimpleBench fit into this bigger picture? What does it actually tell us about the future of AI?
I think SimpleBench serves as a reality check. It's reminding us that we're still a long way from achieving true human-level intelligence. It highlights the importance of not just focusing on, AI successes, but also acknowledging its failures, its blind spots, the areas where it really needs to improve.
It's like those challenging math problems that push us to the limits of our understanding.
Yeah.
Forcing us to rethink our assumptions and develop new approaches. It's like SimpleBench is doing that for AI, exposing the gaps in its current capabilities and pointing toward new directions for research and development.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that the quest for artificial intelligence, it's not just a technological challenge, it's also a philosophical one. What does it even mean for a machine to be intelligent? What are the ethical implications of creating machines that can think and learn like humans? These are questions that will continue to challenge us as AI, it evolves and becomes increasingly integrated into our lives.
Speaking of evolution, let's revisit the researchers' attempts to improve the AI's performance using prompt engineering. What did those efforts reveal about the nature of AI learning?
The results of the prompt engineering experiments, they were fascinating. Remember how they tried to give the AI these specific instructions to make it more cautious and consider real-world factors?
Yeah, it's like trying to guide a student through a tricky proof, offering these hints, these suggestions, without giving away the whole solution.
Exactly. And while those prompts, they did lead to some improvement, the AI's performance, it was still far, far below that of humans. So this really suggests that simply feeding AI more information or providing it with more explicit rules, it isn't enough to bridge that gap in common sense reasoning.
It's as if the AI is missing this fundamental understanding of the world, a kind of intuitive grasp of how things work that allows humans to make sense of new situations and adapt to unexpected challenges.
Precisely. And this really highlights the need for new approaches to AI development, approaches that focus on fostering that kind of intuitive understanding, perhaps through embodied learning, where AI interacts directly with the physical world, or through social learning, where it learns from human mentors and collaborators.
So instead of just feeding AI data and algorithms, we need to create these environments where it can experiment,
Yeah.
explore, and develop its own understanding of the world, much like a child learning through, play and interaction.
That's a powerful analogy, and it points towards a future where AI isn't just a tool that we use, but a partner that we learn with and grow alongside. But before we get too carried away with those futuristic visions, let's ground ourselves back in the present and examine some specific examples of how different AI models performed on various question types in SimpleBench. So one area where the AI models really struggled was what the researchers call linguistic adversarial robustness. Essentially, these are questions designed to like exploit the quirks of language and logic. You know, those gotcha moments that make you reread a sentence 5 times to make sure you haven't missed anything.
Oh, I know those, like those tricky word problems that seem straightforward at first.
Yeah.
And then they just twist your brain into a knot.
Exactly. And it turns out that even the most sophisticated AI models, there's still no match for humans when it comes to navigating those linguistic landmines.
Which makes sense, right? I mean, human language is so nuanced and context dependent. We rely on this shared cultural understanding, implicit assumptions, even things like tone of voice to interpret meaning, It's hard to imagine programming all of that into an AI.
Yeah. It's incredibly complex, and SimpleBench, it really highlights the limitations of current approaches. The AI models often got caught up in wordplay or double meanings, missing that underlying logic that, the human would easily grasp.
Can you give us an example of one of those tricky questions that stumped the AI? I'm picturing something like a mathematical paradox, where the logic seems to contradict itself.
Okay, so one question involved a scenario where someone's walking a dog on a leash. The leash is described as being long, and then the question asks if the leash is shorter than a short rope.
Oh, I see the trap. It's playing on the relative terms long and short without giving an absolute measure of length. I bet the AI, it got fixated on the word short.
Yeah.
And just assumed the rope must be shorter than the leash.
You nailed it. That's exactly what happened with many of the AI models. They focused on the literal words without considering the broader context, or the possibility that a short rope could actually be longer than a long leash.
It's like they're missing that layer of human understanding, where we can hold multiple possibilities in mind at once, weighing different interpretations, and considering the most likely scenario based on our experience of the world.
That's a key insight. Humans are constantly making inferences and filling in gaps based on our knowledge of the world, while AI systems, they tend to be more literal and rule-bound in their processing.
It's like the difference between understanding a mathematical concept intuitively and simply memorizing a formula. You might be able to plug in numbers and get the right answer, but you don't truly grasp the underlying principles.
Exactly, and that lack of deep understanding, it can lead to all sorts of problems when AI systems are applied to real-world tasks, especially those that involve interacting with humans, in natural language.
Yeah, imagine a chatbot or a virtual assistant that can't handle sarcasm or irony or subtle shifts in meaning. It could lead to some hilariously awkward or even disastrous interactions.
Absolutely. And this is where SimpleBench provides valuable insights for developers. It's not just about creating AI that can answer questions correctly. It's about creating AI that can understand and respond to human language in a way that feels natural, intuitive, and avoids those awkward moments that shatter the illusion of intelligence.
So what does all this mean for the future of AI? Are we on the right track, or do we need like a fundamental shift in our approach?
Well, I think SimpleBench, it serves as a reality check. It reminds us that we're still a long way from achieving true human-level intelligence. It highlights the need for new approaches that focus on fostering deeper understanding, perhaps through embodied learning or social interaction.
So instead of just feeding AI data and algorithms, we need to create environments where it can experience the world, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, much like a child learning through play and exploration.
Exactly, and that points towards a future where AI isn't just a tool, but a partner, a collaborator that can help us solve problems and understand the world in new and unexpected ways.
It's an exciting prospect.
Yeah.
But it also raises, important ethical questions. As AI becomes more powerful and integrated into our lives, we need to ensure that it's developed and used responsibly in a way that benefits all of humanity.
Absolutely. And that's why research like SimpleBench is so crucial. It helps us understand the current limitations of AI, the areas where it really needs to improve, and the challenges we need to address to ensure a safe and beneficial future with these powerful technologies.
So for all the math enthusiasts out there, SimpleBench is this fascinating case study in the complexities of intelligence, both human and artificial. It's a reminder that true understanding goes beyond simply manipulating symbols or following rules. It requires intuition, insight, and that elusive quality we call common sense.
And for those who want to experience SimpleBench firsthand, you can actually try some of the questions yourself on their website. It's a fun and thought-provoking way to test your own common sense and see how you stack up against the AI.
Yeah. I highly recommend giving it a try. It's a humbling reminder of just how complex and nuanced human intelligence really is. And it gives us a glimpse into the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead as we continue to explore the frontiers of artificial intelligence. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into SimpleBench. We hope you've gained some new insights into this fascinating world of AI and the ever-evolving relationship between humans and machines. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep exploring. Right, so get this. We're diving into this new benchmark called SimpleBench. It's making waves in the AI world, testing AI reasoning and all. But here's the kicker. It's designed so that people, like, with just high school knowledge can actually do better than even, like, the most advanced AI. Wild, right?
Definitely grabs my attention. This SimpleBench, as you say, it seems to be challenging those claims of human-level reasoning we keep hearing about with all these fancy AI advancements. It's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, and you being so deep in this field, you're going to appreciate all the details we're about to uncover here. So we're going to really dig into this research paper on SimpleBench, exploring the types of questions they're asking and why AI struggles with them, and what all this means for the future of AI, where it's headed.
Let's jump in then. I'm definitely curious to hear more about this SimpleBench thing.
So, okay, SimpleBench is a multiple choice test, but don't let that fool you. It's way more complex than it sounds. It's got a ton of questions, like 204 of them, covering all sorts of cognitive skills. We're talking spatial reasoning, temporal reasoning, even social intelligence. And then there's this thing called linguistic adversarial robustness, basically trick questions, to see if AI can avoid those common mistakes we humans make.
Right. So it's not about testing specialized knowledge here. It's about assessing an AI's ability to deal with real-world situations, those messy scenarios we encounter every day. It's about common sense. Can they reason things out when the information isn't perfectly clear?
And here's a perfect example. They describe this scenario in the paper called the juggler scenario. Okay, picture this. A juggler, she tosses a blue ball like a meter into the air, then a purple ball 2 meters high. Then she climbs this tall ladder with a yellow balloon on her head. The question is, where's that purple ball in relation to the blue one?
Ah, I see where they're going with this. Sounds simple, but there's definitely some thinking involved. You got to apply some basic physics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the AI, as the paper suggests, often misses that subtle point.
Exactly. The obvious answer, but the wrong one, is that the purple ball is higher than the blue one. But a lot of AI misses the fact that both balls would have landed by the time she climbs that ladder. Us humans, we kind of get that intuitively, right?
Yeah, and that's a key point here. Even with all that data they have access to, AI can still struggle when it comes to applying like basic reasoning in context. It's that context that we humans take for granted, and it seems to be a major hurdle for AI.
And the results are, well, they're kind of startling. The best AI model, it only got a 41.7% accuracy rate on SimpleBench. Compare that to a small group of people they tested, no special training or anything. They averaged 83.7% accuracy. That's a huge difference.
So the question is why? Why are AI models, so good at complex calculations, coding, all that? Why do they trip up on these seemingly simple questions?
The researchers think it's a fundamental difference in how AI and humans approach reasoning. AI relies on patterns, statistical correlations, but us humans, we have this deeper understanding of cause and effect. We reason more intuitively.
Right. It's like AI can mimic reasoning in those controlled environments, but it's not really understanding the nuances, those ambiguities, the things we encounter in real life. And that's where SimpleBench really shines a light. It exposes those limitations and, underscores the need for AI that can think more like us.
And here's another example. They call it the sandwich scenario. So imagine this person, Agatha. She makes a stack of 5 ham sandwiches, right? Then she tapes the top one to her walking stick and walks to another room. The question is, how many whole sandwiches are in each room?
Again, seems easy enough. But the AI, focusing on the numbers and the moving between rooms, they tend to say there's 4 whole sandwiches in the new room and 1 left behind. But anyone with a little common sense will tell you.
That sandwich taped to the walking stick, it's not going to stay whole, right? It's common sense.
Yeah.
But for AI, it's a challenge, it seems.
Exactly. The right answer is 4 in the original room and none in the new one. It's about understanding the real-world consequences of actions. AI still has a way to go.
Right. It's not just about processing information, but understanding what it means in the real world. And it's interesting to see how different AI models performed. They noticed that models like GPT-4o, which are great at math and coding, actually did worse than models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
That's telling us something, isn't it? Maybe that focus on optimizing AI for those specific structured tasks, it might be hindering the development of more general reasoning skills. It raises questions about the trade-offs, specialization versus generalization in AI development.
So how do they try to improve the AI's performance on SimpleBench? Well, they use this technique called prompt engineering. Basically, they give the AI more specific instructions, hints to guide their thinking process.
They were trying to see if providing more context, prompting the AI to consider, like, the possibility of a trick, could help them reason better. They added prompts like, this might be a trick question, or think about what would happen in the real world.
It's like giving the AI a nudge, reminding it to consider the subtleties. And, it did help a little bit to a certain extent.
The best model, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, its accuracy jumped to 54.9% when they used a special prompt. That's an improvement for sure, but...
Still a long way from human performance.
Right. And that brings up another question. Is prompt engineering really a solution to those underlying limitations in AI reasoning? Or is it just a temporary fix, a band-aid that doesn't address the root cause?
Is it just steering them towards the right answer without them actually understanding why?
Exactly. It makes you wonder about the long-term viability of prompt engineering. It seems like we're still figuring out how to get AI to think holistically. It's a tough nut to crack, isn't it? This whole thing about giving AI that intuitive reasoning, we humans, we just do it naturally,
It really is.
Yeah.
And the SimpleBench folks, they admit their work is just the start. They point out some limitations in their study. Like, one thing is the small group of people they tested. Only 9 people for that human baseline.
Yeah, good point. Having a bigger group, more diverse, that would definitely make the findings stronger. Give us a better understanding of how us humans, with all our quirks and differences, how we tackle those reasoning problems.
They also talk about how tricky it is to even set a normal human intelligence level, like what's average, right? It's not a simple thing to define.
Not at all. So many things can affect how someone does on a test, like SimpleBench. Education, culture, heck, even how well they slept the night before, human intelligence, it's this whole complicated mix.
Makes you realize comparing AI to humans, it's not just about scores on a test, right? It's about understanding that huge range of human thinking abilities. There's no single way to measure intelligence.
Absolutely. And the paper gets that. They get that complexity. They suggest doing larger studies, more diverse groups. That would give a more complete picture of how humans do on SimpleBench, a better benchmark for AI development.
They also say maybe try different kinds of tests, not just multiple choice. Maybe something where AI has to come up with its own answers, solve things in a more open way. That could show us more about what AI can and can't do.
Interesting idea. Multiple choice is easy for collecting data and all, but you can sometimes guess right just by chance. It doesn't always capture the full picture of how humans reason. Going beyond that, that could be really valuable.
So if we boil it down, SimpleBench is telling us even the most advanced AI, they're still pretty far from human-level reasoning, at least when it comes to those messy, everyday situations.
I think that's a fair assessment. It's a reminder that AI has come a long way, but there's a long road ahead. To get AI that truly understands the world like we do, we're still trying to figure out how our own minds work and then translate that for machines.
But hey, at least we have benchmarks like SimpleBench now, right? That shows we're realizing AI needs to be more than just good at specific tasks.
Definitely. By finding those weaknesses, seeing where AI fell short, that helps us focus on new approaches, new techniques to push AI closer to that goal, to get it thinking more like us. It's about seeing the gaps and then figuring out how to bridge them.
And maybe even more important, it's about spotting potential problems before they happen. As AI gets more advanced, We got to make sure it's working with our values, our goals as a society.
Exactly. Responsible AI development. SimpleBench is a tool for that, a valuable one. It helps us evaluate AI in a more complete way. Not just how well it does on a specific task, but the bigger picture, intelligence, reasoning, ethics.
It's about seeing the whole picture, how all those things connect to make what we call intelligence.
And ultimately, it's about figuring out what it means for us humans to live and work with these increasingly smart machines. It's a journey of discovery for AI and for all of us, really.
The paper ends on a pretty thought-provoking question, and I'm curious to hear what you think. What does SimpleBench tell us about the nature of intelligence itself? And what will it take for AI to truly understand like humans do? What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, that's a big question, one that's been around for ages. I think SimpleBench shows us that intelligence isn't just knowing facts or being good at specific skills. It's about using that knowledge in different situations you might not even expect. It's about understanding the context, making connections, figuring things out in a way that goes beyond just following rules or doing calculations. It's really about that common sense, right? We humans, we just have it, but getting machines to have it, that's the tricky part.
Yeah, SimpleBench is like this reminder that we need to think bigger when we're developing AI. It's not just about beating us on tests, but about creating AI that actually gets the world in a way that makes sense to us humans.
And that brings us to the big question, what'll it take for AI to actually reach that level of understanding that we humans seem to have naturally? It's a huge challenge, and I think it's going to need us to change how we approach AI altogether. We got to move beyond just feeding AI tons of data and
Yeah.
start making systems that can learn and adapt like we do.
So instead of just data, we need to give AI the ability to learn from experiences, figure things out on its own, and really grasp the world around it.
Exactly. We need AI that understands cause and effect, can think about abstract ideas, and basically build up a real understanding of the world. It's not about just copying human intelligence, but creating a kind of understanding for machines that works alongside ours, makes us better.
It smells like we got to teach AI to be more curious, to ask questions, to be more human. Like give it that same drive to explore and figure things out that's gotten us humans this far.
In a way, yeah. We need to give AI that thirst for knowledge, that desire to solve the mysteries of the universe, the same thing that's pushed humanity forward. It's a tough challenge, but I think it's key if we want to create AI that really works with us and helps us do amazing things.
It feels like this challenge forces us to ask those deep questions about what is intelligence, what is consciousness, what does it even mean to be human? It's not just about tech anymore, it's about who we are.
Absolutely. SimpleBench, with all its insights and challenges, it's like a guide and a motivator on this journey we're on.
As we wrap up our deep dive into SimpleBench, it's a mix of excitement and a sense of responsibility. Exciting because AI has so much potential, but also a responsibility to make sure it develops in a way that benefits everyone.
I feel that too. SimpleBench has given us so much to think about, not just where AI is now, but where it could go. It's up to all of us, the researchers, the developers, the people making policies, to guide this powerful technology in the right direction for everyone's benefit.
A direction where AI and humans work together, each bringing what they're best at, to tackle the big challenges and make the most of the opportunities ahead of us.
Exactly. A future where AI helps us, makes us stronger, not replaces or weakens us.
And for our listener, someone who's really in the thick of this field, I hope this deep dive has given you some new things to think about, maybe even spark some new ideas.
Maybe a new way of looking at AI, one that sees how important it is to consider not just the tech, but also the ethics, the philosophy, the things that will shape how this technology changes our world.
So as we close out our exploration of SimpleBench, let's leave our listener with this. This whole journey of AI, it's a reflection of our own journey to understand ourselves, to figure out consciousness, and to see what's truly possible. It's a journey with bumps in the road and amazing possibilities, and it's one we're taking together. All right, welcome back. We're diving into a research paper today.
Mhm.
It poses a pretty interesting question. Can AI outsmart high schoolers?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like can AI actually outperform them on tests designed to gauge reasoning skills based on like everyday stuff?
Okay, I see.
The paper's called SimpleBench, the text benchmark in which unspecialized human performance exceeds that of current frontier models. It's been generating a lot of buzz.
I can see why that title's quite a mouthful. But it sounds fascinating. So SimpleBench, is that like a specific test or something?
Yeah, exactly. It's not about like, number crunching or complex calculations. It's more about how well AI can reason about, the world around us using like common sense, logic, basic physics, social dynamics, that sort of thing.
So like real world smarts instead of just book smarts.
Right, exactly. And get this, humans with just high school level knowledge, they consistently beat even the most advanced AI.
Really?
Yeah, like we're talking an average score of 83.7% for humans versus like a measly 41.7% for the top AI.
Wow, okay. That's a pretty significant difference. It really highlights how, even though AI's come so far, there's still something about human reasoning that it's not quite grasping.
Yeah, it's like AI might excel at tasks with clear rules and data, but when it comes to the messiness of real-world situations, it kind of stumbles.
Yeah, makes sense. So what kind of questions are we talking about here? What exactly tripped up these AI geniuses?
Well, one example, there's this woman, Agatha. She makes a stack of 5 ham sandwiches, and here's where it gets interesting. She tapes the top sandwich to her walking stick and walks into another room.
A tape sandwich. Okay, I'm intrigued. Haha.
The question is, how many whole sandwiches are in each room? Sounds pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty simple.
But GPT-4, one of the most powerful language models out there, it actually got this wrong.
No way, really?
Yeah, it seemed to think of it as just a simple transfer, like the tape sandwich would just stay intact. Didn't quite grasp the whole physics of a ham sandwich taped to a walking stick.
Haha, right. I guess common sense isn't AI's strong suit yet. We all know that sandwich is going to fall apart.
Exactly. Humans just kind of instinctively get that, right? We factor in things like gravity, the flimsiness of bread, all that real-world stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what the researchers call holistic reasoning, this ability to integrate all sorts of information to make sense of things.
So AI is more like compartmentalized thinking, great at following instructions, but struggles with the bigger picture, the more nuanced stuff.
Right, exactly. It's like another example, there's this scenario with a juggler. They're tossing balls in the air while climbing a ladder. They've got a balloon balanced on their head.
Okay, that's a pretty impressive juggler. What's the catch?
Well, the question focuses on where the balls will be after the juggler climbs a certain distance. It's like a physics problem. We got to understand how gravity plays into it, how time affects the trajectory.
I see, I see. So it's not just about calculating the initial forces, but understanding how the situation unfolds over time.
Exactly. And once again, the AI models fumbled. They struggled to incorporate that concept of time.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't quite grasp that even if the balls are thrown to different heights, they'll both eventually fall.
Interesting. So it seems like these examples, while maybe a bit funny, really point to a potential limitation in current AI, especially when it comes to tasks that require a deeper understanding of how things work in the real world.
Absolutely. If we're going to rely on AI for things like, I don't know, healthcare or self-driving cars, we need to be sure they can handle the unpredictable nature of reality, right?
For sure, for sure. So what did the researchers do? Did they just leave the AI to struggle, or did they try to give it a little help?
Well, they actually tried something called prompt engineering. It's like giving the AI some hints, to guide it in the right direction.
Oh, interesting. Like giving it some extra context or clues.
Exactly. Like they might tell the AI to consider real-world physics or to be wary of trickery in the questions.
I see. So they were trying to like preemptively address some of the weaknesses they'd observed.
Right. And it did help. The AI performed a bit better, but even with this extra help, it still lagged behind human performance.
Hmm. So while prompt engineering is a helpful tool, it doesn't completely solve the problem. There's still a fundamental difference in how AI approaches these reasoning tasks.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It suggests that there's more work to be done, to really bridge that gap between AI and human-level reasoning.
Definitely. It's a fascinating area of research, that's for sure.
Okay, so we've seen that even the fanciest AI struggles with reasoning that humans find pretty easy. But what does this really mean for us in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, that's the key question, right? I mean, it's easy to kind of brush this off as just like a funny quirk of AI. But when you step back, the implications could be pretty big.
Right, like it's not just a theoretical thing anymore. We're relying on AI for more and more decisions that actually affect our lives, right? Like
Yeah.
healthcare, finance, even driving our cars.
Exactly, exactly. And if AI is still having trouble with those everyday scenarios, well, that could have some real consequences. I mean, imagine a self-driving car that can't predict a kid running into the street, or a medical AI that misses a patient's like subtle signs of pain.
Yeah, those are some pretty scary thoughts. It really underscores the need for AI that can, reason about the world in a way that's more, more human, I guess.
Right, yeah, more robust, more flexible, aligned with our common sense. We can't just have AI blindly following rules and crunching numbers. It needs to be able to deal with the unexpected,
You're
you
right.
know?
Absolutely. Okay, so how do we get there? How do we actually make AI smarter in this reasoning department?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Researchers are exploring a lot of interesting avenues. One idea is to develop new training methods. Like, it's not just about feeding AI tons of data anymore.
Right. So instead of force feeding it information, we need to teach it to think more critically, to make connections like humans do.
Exactly. There's this idea called neurosymbolic AI. It's about combining the power of deep learning with symbolic reasoning. It's like, what if AI could learn from examples, but also understand abstract rules and principles?
Oh, interesting. So it's like giving AI a set of tools, like building blocks, rather than just handing it a pre-assembled structure.
Right, exactly. And then there's also this whole area of research focused on incorporating like common sense knowledge into AI training.
Ah, like all those unwritten rules that we just kind of absorb as humans, right?
Yeah.
Things about how objects behave or how people interact.
Exactly. We just know, for example, that things don't just disappear, that people have intentions and emotions. AI needs that kind of foundation too.
It's like teaching AI the unspoken rules of the game, the stuff you don't learn from a textbook.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's also the power of human feedback. Like, what if we could create this loop where AI systems are constantly learning from both data and human experts?
So it's like having a mentor for the AI, guiding it through the trickier parts of real-world situations.
Exactly. And all of this ties into this idea of transparency in AI, you know. As we give AI more and more responsibility, it's vital that we understand how it works, how it makes decisions.
Right. We can't just have this black box making choices for us. We need to be able to look inside and see the reasoning behind those choices.
Exactly. It's all about building trust and ensuring that AI is used, ethically and responsibly. And that also means recognizing the importance of human oversight, even as AI gets more sophisticated.
Right. It's about finding that balance between AI's power and human control, making sure AI stays a tool that serves us, not the other way around.
Absolutely. So, coming back to SimpleBench, it's not just about pointing out AI's flaws. It's about pushing us to think critically about the future of AI and how we want to guide it.
Yeah, it's like a wake-up call, reminding us that even the most impressive AI is still just, it's still just getting started.
Exactly. And it's our job to understand both its strengths and its weaknesses, and to actively shape its development in a way that benefits everyone.
All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive here. We've talked about the good and the bad of current AI, but what about the future? Where do we go from here?
Well, one thing that could really move the needle is developing better benchmarks. Like SimpleBench was a good start, but we need more tests that really challenge AI's reasoning abilities.
So like more obstacle courses for these AI brains to navigate.
Yeah, exactly. And not just multiple choice questions either. We got to get AI to generate its own answers, explain its thinking. More like what humans do when they solve problems.
Ah, so it's not just about picking the right answer. It's about understanding why it's right and being able to like explain that to someone else.
Right, right. That kind of transparency is key. It
Okay,
helps us understand how AI is making decisions, see if there are any biases or flaws in its logic, and that builds trust, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
So more challenging benchmarks. Got it. What else is on the research horizon?
Well, another big one is developing new AI architectures and training methods. Like, we can't just keep feeding AI data and hope it learns to reason like
Right. It's
us.
not magic. It's got to be more deliberate, more focused on teaching those deeper reasoning skills.
Exactly. It's like, think about learning from a textbook. You can memorize facts, but that doesn't mean you understand the concepts, right?
Ah, so it's about giving AI that deeper understanding, not just surface level processing.
Right. And that might mean, getting inspiration from other fields, cognitive science, psychology, even philosophy.
Oh, wow. So it's like we're looking to the human mind for clues on how to build better AI.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do humans handle things like causality, intention, emotions? Those are things AI really struggles with.
Sounds like a pretty big interdisciplinary challenge.
Uh,
AI researchers, neuroscientists, philosophers, all working together.
Definitely, definitely. It's a fascinating time to be working in this field, that's for sure.
It sounds like it. And of course, through all of this, we can't forget the ethical side of things. As AI gets more powerful, we're going to make sure it's used for good, you know?
Oh, absolutely. AI should be a force for good in the world. We have to think about its impact on people, on society as a whole.
So to wrap up this whole deep dive, what would you say are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think the biggest one is that AI has amazing potential, but it's still a work in progress. Creating AI that truly reasons like us, understands the world like us, that's a long road ahead.
But it's a road worth traveling, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a road we need to travel together. You know, we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI, making sure it benefits everyone.
Well said. And on that note, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. As AI keeps evolving, what role do you see it playing in your life, your work, the world around you? It's a question worth thinking about because the answers will shape the future we create. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. You know, I was reading this article the other day, and it was all about how AI is supposed to be reaching like human level reasoning.
Really?
Yeah, and it really got me thinking about all the hype, about AI, all this stuff about large language models, these LLMs.
Right.
Are they really as smart as everyone says they are?
It's a good question. It really is. And there's this paper we're looking at today that sort of challenges all that.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's called SimpleBench, the text benchmark in which unspecialized human performance exceeds that of current frontier models.
Okay, so breaking that down.
Basically, it's a test to see like how well AI can actually reason about everyday things.
So less about complex equations and more about common sense.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
it uses multiple choice questions, but they're all based on real world scenarios. So the kind of things we humans just navigate, without even thinking about it.
Interesting.
And the really surprising part is humans are actually doing better than even the most advanced AI on this benchmark.
No way, really. I'm interested now. So tell me more about this simple bench. What makes it so unique?
Well, one of the things is they use what they call trick questions and ambiguous situations.
Okay.
So it's not just about like testing an AI's knowledge base, but its ability to deal with uncertainty and think critically.
Right.
The researchers actually tested 13 different LLMs,
Wow.
some of the like biggest names out there, and none of them could get close to human performance.
That's wild. Can you give me an example, like a question that really tripped up the AI?
Okay, so imagine this. Someone is making sandwiches, stacking them up, and then they tape the top sandwich to a walking stick,
Okay.
and then they try to walk with it.
Uh-huh.
What happens?
Well, obviously the sandwich is going to fall apart as soon as they try to
Right.
walk, right?
Yeah.
It's just common sense.
Yeah, exactly. But GPT-4, which is one of the most advanced models, it focused on things like the number of sandwiches and where they were moved to, like completely missed the practical part of it.
Huh. So it's like it couldn't really picture the scenario or understand the consequences.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So it's not just about like processing the words. It's about actually understanding the world those words describe.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where AI seems to be hitting a wall right now. Like, it's great at things with clear rules and lots of data, like math or coding, but it really struggles with all the like nuance and ambiguity of real world situations.
Okay, but how badly did the AI actually perform? Like, give me the numbers.
Well, when they looked at all 13 of the LLMs, the average accuracy was way lower than the human baseline.
How much lower?
Like humans scored an average of 83.7%.
Okay.
And the top AI model only got about 41.7%.
Wow. That's a pretty big difference.
And don't forget, random chance is about 16.7%.
Right.
So some of these models were barely doing better than if they were just guessing.
That is pretty bad.
And what's even more interesting is that some models, like GPT-4, actually did worse than others. The researchers think this might be because the people making them are focusing on optimizing for specific tasks, like being really good at math or coding.
Yeah.
But that might be happening at the expense of more general reasoning skills, the kind of thing that SimpleBench is measuring.
So it's like they're creating these like super specialized calculators that are amazing at certain things, but don't actually understand how the world works.
Right, yeah. And this whole trade-off between specialized skills and holistic reasoning, that's one of the really key things that SimpleBench is showing us. It challenges this whole idea that we've achieved true, like, human-level reasoning with AI.
Okay, so AI still has a long way to go when it comes to understanding the world the way we do. But did the researchers, like, try to help the AI at all? Give it any hints?
They did. They tried something they called a special prompt.
Okay.
It was basically like a set of instructions to try and guide the AI's thinking. It was like, hey, watch out for trick questions, think about real-world physics, consider all your options carefully.
So it's like a little pep talk for the AI.
Kinda, yeah.
And did it work? Did it help?
Well, there were some improvements. Like some models saw their scores go up by about 13%.
Okay, that's something.
But even with that extra help, they still weren't as good as humans.
So it's like prompting can be a helpful tool,
Yeah.
but it's not a magic solution, right? There's something deeper missing.
Right. Yeah. The researchers think that the models we have now are still too reliant on memorized knowledge and pattern recognition. They don't have that same flexibility and adaptability that humans use to deal with new and unfamiliar situations.
Okay, but before we go too far down the AI rabbit hole, I'm curious about the human side of this. How did they figure out what average human intelligence even is for this benchmark?
Good question. So they got 9 native English speakers,
Okay.
all with at least a high school level of math. And each person answered a random set of 25 questions. So they made sure all 204 questions were answered at least once.
9 people. Seems
Yes.
like a pretty small group to represent all of humanity.
Yeah, and the researchers actually acknowledge that. They point out that things like education, how long you spend on the test, even your fluency in English could all affect the results. So it's more of a starting point. You know, a snapshot of how a small group of humans tackled these questions.
Okay, that makes sense. But it still makes you wonder, how does SimpleBench compare to other AI benchmarks out there? Does it really measure something different?
And that's where things get really interesting.
Oh,
So they compared the SimpleBench scores to another benchmark called LiveBench, and they found a strong correlation,
okay.
especially when they excluded certain models from OpenAI.
Hold on. Excluding certain models made the correlation stronger.
Yeah, so remember how we talked about some models being optimized for specific tasks?
Yeah.
Well, those models, especially some from OpenAI, they seem to be skewing the results. Like, they did really well on traditional benchmarks, the ones that focused on those specialized skills, but they struggled on SimpleBench, which needs that broader, less structured type of reasoning.
So SimpleBench is tapping into something different, something those super specialized models haven't mastered yet.
Exactly. That's the key takeaway. SimpleBench shows us that we need benchmarks that go beyond just measuring task-specific skills. We need ways to assess an AI's ability to handle the unexpected, the ambiguous stuff, the real-world scenarios that need more than just pattern recognition.
Okay, so we've established that this SimpleBench is a pretty big deal. It's really challenging our ideas about what AI can do. But I'm curious to get into the nitty-gritty. Like, what specific reasoning challenges does it actually present?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So, in part 2 of this deep dive, we're going to break down those 4 categories of SimpleBench: spatial reasoning, temporal reasoning, social intelligence, and what they call linguistic adversarial robustness.
Sounds like we're in for some serious mental gymnastics.
Get ready.
Okay, so last time we were talking about how SimpleBench is testing a different kind of AI intelligence.
Right.
One that's not just about specialized skills, but about common sense reasoning. So I'm ready to dig into these reasoning categories you mentioned.
Let's do it. First up is spatial reasoning.
Okay.
So think of it like the ability to visualize and manipulate objects in space, to understand things like distance, direction, shape, all that.
So like those puzzles where you have to rotate shapes in your head to see if they fit together.
Yeah, exactly. We humans do this all the time without even thinking about it.
Right.
But it's actually really hard for AI.
Interesting.
SimpleBench has questions that test the AI's ability to keep track of where things are moving, imagine different perspectives, and understand how things are related in space.
I bet there's an example where the AI really messed this up.
Oh, there are plenty. Okay, so imagine this. You have 3 boxes stacked on top of each other.
Okay.
Now you take the middle box and put it on the floor to the right of the stack.
Uh-huh.
The question is, what's the spatial relationship between the box that was originally on top and the box that's now on the floor?
So the box that was on top is now the bottom box of the stack, and the box on the floor is to the right. This feels like elementary school all over again.
Right. It seems simple to us. But a lot of AI models had trouble with this kind of spatial transformation. They'd get confused about which box was which after you move them, or they'd misinterpret the directions.
But they can't keep track of their virtual world.
Exactly. And this spatial reasoning stuff, it's important for tons of things in the real world, like navigating a room, packing a suitcase, putting together furniture.
Okay, spatial reasoning check. What about temporal reasoning?
Yes, temporal reasoning. This one is even more complex. But again, it's something we humans do all the time. It's all about understanding time, the order of events, how long things take, all that.
So like knowing that breakfast comes before lunch or that a movie usually takes about 2 hours?
Exactly. It's about understanding sequences, cause and effect, and how time flows. SimpleBench has questions that test whether the AI can follow timelines, predict what might happen next, and understand what happens when time passes.
Hit me with a temporal head scratcher.
All right, picture this. A train leaves New York City heading towards Los Angeles at 10:00 a.m. Another train leaves Los Angeles heading towards New York City at 2:00 p.m. Which train is closer to New York City when they pass each other?
Okay, let me think. The train from New York has a 4-hour head start, so it would definitely be closer to New York when they pass each other.
You got it. You naturally took the time into account. But a lot of AI models, they'd get stuck on the fact that the train from Los Angeles is heading towards New York. They wouldn't think about when it left.
It's like they don't understand how time changes everything. They're stuck in a single moment instead of seeing the whole story unfold.
That's a great way to put it. And this ability to reason about time, it's essential for so many things. From planning a schedule to understanding history to even following a recipe.
All right, so we've tackled space and time. What's next?
Social intelligence. And this is where things get really interesting.
I'm thinking the same thing.
This is probably one of the most complex parts of human intelligence. It's all about understanding and navigating the complexities of human relationships, social cues, emotional responses, all that.
So like knowing when someone is being sarcastic or understanding why someone might be feeling a certain way.
Exactly. It's about reading between the lines, interpreting nonverbal communication, understanding how people might react. And this is where AI really struggles.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough for a machine to grasp. What kind of question stumped the AI in this category?
Okay, imagine you're at a dinner party. Someone accidentally spills their drink.
Oh, no.
And another guest says, "Oh no, what a disaster." The question is the guest who said that, are they actually upset about the spilled drink? Or are they trying to lighten the mood?
In that situation, it seems pretty obvious that they're trying to make a joke and make the person who spilled feel better. It's all about the social cues.
Exactly. We pick up on those cues without even thinking about it. But AI tends to take things literally. It might think, what a disaster means the person is genuinely upset and totally miss the social context.
It's like they're missing that whole layer of unspoken communication that we have, the subtle cues that really shape how we interact.
Right. And this social intelligence, it's crucial for so many things: communicating effectively, building relationships, understanding how social dynamics work. It's what allows us to be human in a social world.
Okay, so we've covered spatial reasoning, temporal reasoning, social intelligence. What's left? Bring on the trick questions.
All right, you asked for it. The last one is linguistic adversarial robustness. This is all about wordplay, ambiguity, those little twists of language that can trip us up, even as humans.
Ooh, I like this one already.
It basically measures how well AI can handle language that is misleading or deceptive.
So like those riddles where the answer depends on a play on words, like what has an eye but cannot see?
Exactly. We understand that the eye of a needle is a metaphor, but AI often struggles with figurative language like that. It might get stuck on the word eye and try to find something that literally has an eye, completely missing the point.
It's like they're taking everything at face value without considering the possibility of wordplay or hidden meanings.
Exactly. And this ability to handle linguistic ambiguity, it's crucial for understanding things like humor, sarcasm, irony, all those nuances of human communication that make language so interesting.
It's what allows us to appreciate how rich and complex language can be. So we've explored all 4 categories of SimpleBench. What's the big takeaway here? Why is this benchmark such a game changer?
SimpleBench is a game changer because it shows us the limits of AI in a way that other benchmarks haven't. It's not about how fast an AI can process information or how much data it can memorize.
Right.
It's about whether AI can truly understand the real world, the messy, unpredictable, often illogical world that we humans live in every day.
It's like it's testing for a different kind of intelligence, right?
Right.
One that goes beyond pattern recognition and computation.
Exactly. And the results of SimpleBench, they suggest that we still have a long way to go before AI can really say it has achieved human-level reasoning.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing, is it?
No, not at all. Actually, it's quite the opposite. These challenges, they push us to come up with new approaches to AI. They drive innovation.
So it's not about AI versus humans, but about how we can learn from each other and how we can use AI to make our own abilities better, not just replace them.
Precisely. And that's what we're going to explore in part 3 of this deep dive. We'll talk about what these findings mean for the future of AI and how we might bridge that gap between artificial intelligence and human intelligence.
Welcome back. So we spent a lot of time talking about what AI can't do.
We have.
But what about what it can do? Where do we go from here? What does all this mean for the future of AI?
Well, I think SimpleBench is a good reminder that true intelligence, it's more than just processing power, more than crunching data. It's about context, understanding ambiguity, being able to adapt to the real world, which is constantly changing.
So it's not just about building AI that can think like us,
Right.
but AI that can understand the world we live in.
Exactly. And that's going to take a much broader approach.
Yeah.
We need benchmarks that challenge AI in new ways, more creative ways, more human ways.
But less about standardized tests and more about real-world problem solving.
Exactly. We need to expose AI to the messy, unpredictable parts of human experience. Train it on things that require common sense, intuition, even emotional intelligence.
Almost like giving AI a crash course in being human.
Yeah, kind of. We need to help it understand human values and motivations and all those unwritten rules that we follow when we interact with each other.
That sounds like a huge challenge, but also incredibly exciting. What are some specific things researchers can do to make that happen?
Well, we need to explore different ways to train AI,
Yeah.
like maybe using more diverse data sets, data that captures how complex human language is and how we behave and how we interact socially.
So not just feeding it text and code, but also things like movies, music, art, even just conversations.
Exactly. It needs a much more holistic view of what it means to be human. And we might need to bring in insights from other fields, too, like psychology, sociology, maybe even philosophy.
It's like creating a whole new curriculum for AI, one that goes beyond just the technical stuff.
Yeah, and that curriculum should also focus on ethics, making sure AI is developed responsibly and used in a way that benefits humanity.
Right, because as AI gets more powerful, we need to make sure it aligns with our values. It shouldn't be perpetuating biases or stereotypes.
Exactly. We have to be really aware of how AI will impact society, and we need to build systems that are fair, transparent, and accountable.
So this is bigger than just technology.
Much bigger.
It's about building a future where AI helps us create a better world, a fairer world.
That's the goal.
In SimpleBench, even with all its limitations, it's given us a good starting point.
I think so.
It's shown us that we need to think differently about AI.
Yeah.
It's not just about building machines that think like humans.
Right.
It's about understanding what makes us human in the first place.
And that's going to take a lot of collaboration and creativity and challenging our own assumptions.
Well, this deep dive into SimpleBench has been fascinating. Thanks for walking us through it. And for everyone listening, I highly recommend checking out the SimpleBench website.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
You can see how you do on the questions, compare yourself to the AI, and just think about what all of this means for intelligence, both human and artificial. It's a lot to think about,
It is.
and that's what makes it so exciting. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for another deep dive. Okay, so you know all this talk about AI reaching human-level reasoning.
Yeah.
As someone who, works with complex mathematics all the time, I'm always fascinated by these claims, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always a bit skeptical, too.
It's understandable.
It feels like every few months there's a new AI breakthrough.
Yeah.
But can they really think like we do?
That's the big question. And that's where these benchmarks,
Right.
Things like SimpleBench, they come in, trying to get a more realistic picture of what AI can actually do, especially when we're talking about reasoning. That goes beyond just crunching numbers or, just following instructions.
Yeah, so for this deep dive, we're going to look at this SimpleBench thing,
Okay.
which is, well, they say it's designed to test AI's reasoning abilities, but in a way that's more like how we solve problems in the real world, like, real world problems.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that even high school students are doing better
Yeah.
than the most advanced AI models on this test,
Really?
which is, I don't know, that's pretty intriguing.
It is. It's really interesting. So with SimpleBench, it focuses on four main things, four key areas. There's spatial reasoning, temporal reasoning, then you have social intelligence, and then, this is an interesting one, they call it linguistic adversarial robustness,
Okay.
which basically means how well AI can deal with, like, trick questions.
Ah, interesting.
So the idea is, can AI understand the context? Can it apply common sense? Can it avoid being tricked by misleading information? All things that, we humans are generally pretty good at.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So how does SimpleBench work? What makes it different from other AI tests?
Well, instead of focusing on very specific tasks like solving equations or writing code, SimpleBench uses multiple choice questions. And these questions are designed to kind of mimic everyday scenarios. The researchers wanted to test what they called holistic reasoning, which means being able to kind of understand how all these different pieces of information fit together and using that knowledge to make logical deductions.
So it's less about raw processing power and more about being flexible.
Exactly. And to illustrate this, let's look at one of the example questions from SimpleBench.
Okay.
And it really highlights the difference between how humans reason and how AI reasons. So imagine this, okay. You've got a juggler. She throws two balls in the air, one higher than the other.
Okay.
While she's juggling, she climbs up a ladder, and then she balances a balloon on her head.
Okay.
The question asks, where is the higher ball in relation to the lower ball?
Well, for us, that's pretty obvious, right?
Right.
The higher ball's still above the lower ball, even though she's moved.
Yeah.
I mean, gravity keeps things in place, right? Unless something acts on them, and they didn't say anything about her dropping the balls or anything?
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of common sense reasoning that SimpleBench is trying to assess. We, as humans, have this natural understanding of how the physical world works, and we can apply that to new situations. But for AI, it's not so straightforward. AI models often struggle to create a consistent internal model of the world, so they might have trouble tracking the positions of the balls as the juggler's moving around.
So AI might be able to process information about the balls and the juggler separately, but putting it all together, understanding how all those elements interact in this kind of dynamic situation, that's where the challenge lies.
Yeah, and that's one of the key takeaways from SimpleBench, It's showing us that while AI has made incredible progress in things like language processing and pattern recognition, it still has a long way to go when it comes to replicating the kind of flexible, intuitive reasoning that humans use every day.
So AI versus humans, what's the scorecard look like here? How did AI do on SimpleBench?
Well, the results are pretty surprising, and they really highlight this gap that still exists between human and AI reasoning. So the average human score on SimpleBench was 83.7%.
Okay.
Which, that significantly outperformed all of the AI models tested.
Wow, that's a big difference.
It is.
Which AI model came the closest?
So the best performing model was Google's O1 preview.
Okay.
But it only managed to achieve a score of 41.7%.
Oh, wow.
So even the most advanced AI systems are still lagging behind human capabilities when it comes to this kind of holistic reasoning.
It's interesting because it's like we hear so much about AI's potential, right?
Yeah.
But SimpleBench is kind of reminding us that there's still these really fundamental aspects of human intelligence that AI hasn't quite figured out yet.
And what's even more interesting is that SimpleBench isn't testing complex scientific concepts or specialized knowledge.
Right.
It's focusing on this everyday reasoning.
Yeah.
The kind that we use all the time without even thinking about it.
Right. So let's break it down a bit. Where did AI struggle the most? What were the questions that really tripped it up?
One area where AI really stumbled was in handling these trick questions, or what the researchers call linguistic adversarial robustness. These are questions that are designed to be intentionally misleading. They often use wordplay or subtle details that can lead to the wrong conclusion if you're not paying close attention.
Ah, so it's like AI is susceptible to the same kinds of cognitive biases and logical fallacies that we can fall prey to.
In a way, yes, but it also highlights how AI models can be overly reliant on surface-level patterns in language without fully grasping the underlying meaning or context.
Can you give us an example of a trick question from SimpleBench?
Sure. So there's this one question that involves this character named Agatha,
Right.
and she makes a stack of ham sandwiches, and then she tapes the top sandwich to her walking stick.
All right.
She then walks to another room.
Okay.
The question is, how many whole sandwiches are in each room?
Okay. So at first, it seems like a simple subtraction problem,
Yeah.
right? But I'm guessing there's a catch.
Exactly. A human would immediately understand that taping a sandwich to a walking stick and then moving it would probably make a mess.
Yeah.
The sandwich would fall apart or get squished. So there likely wouldn't be any whole sandwiches left on the walking stick.
Right. But AI might just take the question literally
Yeah.
and just focus on the numbers and the moving without considering what would actually happen in the real world.
That's what happened with several of the AI models tested.
Really?
They treated it as a straightforward transfer problem and completely missed the point of the question, which was to see if they could go beyond the literal interpretation and apply some common sense.
So even though AI is amazing at processing information quickly and accurately,
Yeah.
it seems like it still struggles with this nuanced understanding and this flexible thinking that we're good at.
That's one of the big insights that SimpleBench is providing. It's showing us that there's still this fundamental gap between AI and human reasoning, and that gap is particularly evident when it comes to handling situations that require common sense, contextual awareness, and the ability to anticipate unintended consequences.
This is really interesting. I'm starting to see how SimpleBench is not just about testing AI, but it's about pushing the boundaries of what we understand about intelligence in general, artificial and human.
It is. And the results are raising important questions about how we can develop AI systems that are more robust, adaptable, and ultimately more aligned with human values and goals.
So knowing that AI struggles with these seemingly simple reasoning tasks, what does that tell us about its true understanding of the world?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's something we'll continue to explore in part 2 of this deep dive.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's interesting, right? SimpleBench really shows us that AI might be great at things like playing chess or generating text, but when it comes to the kind of reasoning we do every day without even thinking about it,
Right.
that's where it struggles.
Yeah, it's like AI can solve complex equations, but it doesn't really get what those equations actually mean, in the real world.
Exactly. And that difference, that gap, becomes really clear when we look at how humans performed on SimpleBench.
Right.
Remember, the average human score was 83.7%.
Yeah, way higher than any AI.
Significantly higher, yes. But there's something important to remember here.
Okay, what's that?
Well, when we talk about average human performance, it's more complicated than it sounds.
Oh, how so?
Well, the number of people they tested in the SimpleBench study, it was relatively small. Only 9 participants.
9. That does seem pretty small.
It is, and it might not capture the full range of human reasoning abilities.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like you're taking a tiny snapshot saying this represents everyone.
Exactly. And they didn't account for things like, differences in IQ or specific cognitive skills.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So while that 83.7% score is a useful starting point, it's not necessarily a perfect picture of human reasoning.
Right. It's more of a starting point.
Exactly.
More research is needed.
Yeah, definitely. And a larger, more diverse sample size would give us a better understanding.
Absolutely. So even though humies are doing better than AI on SimpleBench, we still need to refine how we measure that human baseline.
Exactly. There's always room for more exploration.
This is all fascinating. We've talked about how SimpleBench tests AI, how humans perform.
Yeah.
But can we improve AI's reasoning? Can we help it think more like us?
Well, that's what researchers are trying to figure out. And one thing they've been testing with SimpleBench is using something called engineered prompts.
Engineered prompts. Okay, break that down for me.
Basically, it's a way of guiding AI towards a better answer by giving it extra information or instructions.
So it's like giving a little hint.
Exactly. In SimpleBench, they used prompts to warn AI about trick questions or to remind it to think about real-world logic.
Interesting. So did these prompts help?
They did, a little bit. The scores improved slightly, showing that giving AI more guidance can help it avoid some mistakes.
That's encouraging. So we're getting closer to closing that reasoning gap.
Well, not so fast. While the prompts were helpful, they didn't solve the whole problem.
Oh.
Even with the hints, AI still lagged behind humans.
So there's still something fundamental about human reasoning that AI hasn't quite grasped yet.
Exactly. Something beyond just following instructions or recognizing patterns.
It's almost like AI is missing that spark of intuition.
Yeah.
or common sense that helps us navigate the real world.
That's a great way to put it. And that's the challenge for AI researchers, to move beyond just mimicking human behavior and try to understand the underlying principles of human thought.
So SimpleBench isn't just a test. It's helping us understand what it means to think for both AI and humans.
Exactly. By showing us where AI falls short, SimpleBench is guiding us towards a more nuanced understanding of what human intelligence really is.
This has been really insightful. You've given me a new perspective on AI and the challenges ahead.
I'm glad to hear that.
So what's next? Where do we go from here with all of this?
Well, that's something. Well, it really highlights this idea that, AI is powerful at processing information, finding patterns,
Right.
but it's still missing that deeper understanding of how the world works.
Yeah, it's like it can learn the rules of the game,
Right.
but not the unwritten rules.
Exactly. The nuances.
And the stuff we just kind of know.
Like with that sandwich example, AI might struggle to predict what happens because it doesn't get that things fall apart or gravity affects them.
Right, we just know that intuitively.
Exactly. It's so ingrained in our experience.
So how do we bridge that gap? What advancements do we need to get AI to reason more like us?
That's the million-dollar question. Researchers are trying different things.
Okay.
Some think symbolic reasoning is key, like manipulating abstract concepts and logical relationships.
So going beyond just numbers and patterns.
Exactly, more conceptual understanding.
I see.
Others think exposing AI to more diverse data, like videos, real-world interactions, would help.
Given that real-world experience.
Yeah, like an immersive experience.
Learn by doing, like we do.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole debate about consciousness and emotions in AI, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other discussion.
For another time.
Definitely. But it makes you wonder, does true human-like reasoning need something more than just algorithms and data?
Right. Something more fundamental.
It'd be a whole new way of thinking about AI.
SimpleBench has really opened up a lot of questions.
It has.
About AI, about us.
It's really fascinating.
So what are the implications of all this? For you, for our listeners, what should we be thinking about as AI keeps developing?
I think the biggest takeaway is we need to be realistic about what AI can do right now.
Not get carried away by the hype.
Exactly. It's achieved amazing things, but general human-level reasoning is still a long way off.
So be critical. Evaluate based on evidence, not just speculation.
Absolutely. And think about the ethics, too.
Right, as AI gets more powerful, it needs to align with our values.
And be used responsibly.
We need to have these conversations now before it's too late.
I completely agree. We shape AI's future.
It's in our hands.
It would benefit everyone.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive.
It has.
Really insightful look at SimpleBench and AI reasoning.
I agree.
Hopefully it's given everyone some things to think about
I hope so.
as AI continues to evolve.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.